Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very empowering show coming right up with special guest Teri Karjala, and she's here to share with us her new book, Be the Magic of You, Tools to Transform Your Life. Now, Teri is a transformational life strategist, the founder of Creative Counseling Center and Talking with Teri. She's a best-selling author of Be the Magic of You, which has a foreword written by Jack-Canfield. She's a coach with Forbes and a premier success coach with eWomen Network. So let's welcome to the show, Teri Karjala.
Hi, thank you.
Oh, what a pleasure it is to have you here, and very excited to be talking about your new book in this new year. I mean, what a perfect time to kind of think about all this.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, why don't you share with our listeners that are new to you, like what started you on this path? What even made you decide, hey, I'm gonna kind of follow this path of the magic of you?
Yeah, my path started very early on for me. And I started out in high school as a peer counselor, and I just was very intrigued by that work, and I got really cool training very early on to help other kids. And it was probably my first experience that I was working with. I was a junior or senior, and I was working with a 5th and 6th grader, and one of them was suicidal, and as a peer counselor, I got to intervene. And that was very profound for me, and it was definitely one of those pivotal moments in my life. And so that moment really changed the trajectory of my life, and I started going down the route of becoming a counselor. So I went down the path of becoming a counselor, very passionate about that, helping people in some of their darkest days, and started specializing in working with children, adolescents, and adults that had experienced childhood trauma. And then that path has led me to where I'm currently at today with Talking with Teri. And, now I've specialized in working with women entrepreneurs and helping them get past all the personal and professional blocks that are holding them back to really live the life that they love. And so it's been kind of an interesting path for me, and I'm so grateful to be on this path.
Well, and do you find that the women that you work with have some of the same issues regardless where they are as far as their career is concerned?
Yes. I truly feel like we have this huge epidemic in our world, and it's around self-hate, it's around self-doubt, it's around not believing in ourselves and the power and the potency that we bring to this world. And so I see this in, not only in women, I see this in men too, but it's not as highly spoken about, if you will. But I definitely see this in the women that I work with, and just helping support them and guide them. There's a great story about the Golden Buddha. I don't know if you've heard about it before, but in 1957, these monks in Bangkok, Thailand, were in the process of moving this large clay Buddha from one location to the next. And during the move, the clay Buddha slipped and cracked, and the monk that was in charge went down to kind of check on it later that night, and he had taken a flashlight and shined it on it. And what they saw was something shining back. So in further discovery, what they found was this golden Buddha that's 10 feet tall, weighing 5.5 tons, with a net worth of $250 million. And I love that story because I feel like that's kind of what happens. We go through life, and this clay represents all of the stuff that, it's the fears, the doubts, the worries, the insecurities, the stories that we've been told that we bought, and we just get covered up, right? And we start to shrink. And truth be told, I shrunk so small growing up, and it was really this work that I've been doing is really truly allowing me to break open and be seen and have an impact. And so I think a lot of us are in that boat where we've gone through life being covered up, and sometimes we put it there to protect ourselves, but most of the time it's been put there by someone else. And so, really, to go back to your question is, I think it's this process of letting go of all the stuff that was put on us, and really allowing ourselves to shine, and really allowing to see like what the unique qualities I bring to this world, and really allowing that piece to really be seen in the world, and being okay with being our authentic self, and knowing that we'll be okay.
Well, and I think a lot of people have difficult time to get to that authentic, portion of their lives, because they feel like they're, especially women, it's like we wear so many hats. We have to be a mother, and we have to work, and we've got all these different things that we do, maybe some people are writers, whatever the case is. And it feels like we're wearing so many different hats. So I think sometimes I get a little confused, like, okay, so which hat is the real me?
Right, absolutely. And there's pressure for being in all those roles, and having it be done perfect, and having it, there's definitely pressure, and we get kind of in that place of what I call like mediocrity, where it's like, okay, I gotta get up, I gotta, feed the dogs, get the kids off to school, go to work, and then, by the time I get home, cook, clean, and it feels like there's like no time to really, put the effort in, or to work on ourselves, and really, like you said, like to define what that might be for us. And so I feel like it is a lifelong process. And some of the work that I do with the individuals that I work with is kind of two parts. One is I specialize in working on clearing out those like stories and the unconscious blocks, and very outside the box tools. I always tell people I've taken 20 years of my counseling experience, and I've combined it with energy psychology, and then applied the principles of law of attraction with it. And so I do some outside-the-box tools, but really to clear those limitations or those beliefs out that are not serving us now, so that we can get clear. And then I give them the tools to really accentuate, to bring about more of that joy in their life, so they don't feel like they're just stuck in the rut, or they're stuck in this place where they're not feeling completely fulfilled in life.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting, because I think everyone goes through these kind of, we go through these stages where we, maybe we're working or just doing what we need to do, and when we get to a point where it's like, I'm not really feeling like this is fulfilling, my life purpose, or, I'm just kind of going through the motions and doing the things that I have to do, but not necessarily the things that bring me joy. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think we all go through that. I think that, taking evaluation of where we're at, and of course we're heading into the new year, and there's so much excitement about being in the first, the new quarter of the year, and we have all these aspirations and interests and things that are like exciting for us to start and to create, and like how do we keep that momentum, throughout the year, and continuing working on us,
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that you talk about, is about ways to manage our negative thought processes. And that seems to be like a really big one where people get stuck.
Yes. And part of that, what I shared earlier is like those negative stories that we've bought or believed. And most of the time we've picked up stories, consciously or unconsciously, from a very early on, life point in our life. And that can be even, as 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 8-year-olds. When I ask people, where do these beliefs come from? It's early childhood. And what happens is it's almost like we have these like invisible goggles on, and we're wearing them every day. They're just invisible, but no, and there's all these like layers of stories that we view the world with them. Right? And whatever those belief systems are, and they typically can be boiled down to a few concrete beliefs, where it's like, I'm not blank enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not intelligent enough, I'm not something enough. And we've picked these messages up, and so I talk, and that's probably one of the first things that I do when I'm working with folks is let's look at identifying what those belief systems are, and then let's start clearing those out. And there's lots of tools that I teach people so they don't have to continue to get stuck in that trap, because what happens with the unconscious mind is when we start to, whatever we focus on, it expands. And so, the brilliance about our brain is we have this part of the brain called the reticular activation system. And that part of the brain starts to scan our environment to find evidence to support it. So we've all experienced this. So let's say, Marianne, you go and buy a brand new car, and you're like, wow, I had this like shiny red Maserati, and I'm the only one that has this brand new car, like, right? And then you drive off the parking lot, and you drive up to the stoplight, and when you look around, there's like 3 more, right? You didn't see it beforehand because it wasn't brought into your conscious thoughts, but now that it's in your conscious thoughts, you're now seeing them everywhere. Okay, so that part of the brain is always working, and so when we are starting to be exposed, or when we start to go down that path of negativity, our brain actually finds evidence in our environment to support it. I'm not a good mom, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, so you see, I picked up my kids late from school, and my kids yelled at me when I got in the car, and whatever that piece is, and it just spirals out of control. And so we want to stop that, because the more thoughts we're thinking, and the more consistent thoughts that we're thinking in that same pattern, eventually those will become and create a belief system, if it hasn't already. And then it's a little bit more challenging to break those belief systems that we have in place.
Isn't that the truth? A lot of times people don't even realize until their 40s, 50s, 60s that they've got these limiting beliefs, and they're like, well, wait a minute, I thought I got rid of that. How come it's still there?
Yeah. Well, and oftentimes it's so ingrained. It's so ingrained, and when we look at the conscious and unconscious, so I always kind of draw out this little picture of an iceberg, and most of us have heard the iceberg theory before. And 10% of the iceberg is conscious thought. So whatever thought you're thinking right this second is conscious thought. Now, below that iceberg, what we see below the surface or below the water, that 90% represents our unconscious or subconscious thoughts. And so that is running all the time. It's like the NASDAQ ticker. It never shuts off. And so whether we're not conscious of it, that thing is going all the time, and that those brain waves are kicking in. And so a lot of times people will be like, well, I'm trying to change my thoughts, and I'm going to think positive thoughts, and I'm doing my 3 affirmations a day. Well, 3 affirmations is a start. However, when we think about those thoughts, only 2,000 of those, we have anywhere from 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day, according to the National Science Foundation, and only 2,000 of those are conscious thoughts. And so when we do our 3, affirmations or whatnot, it doesn't even make a dent into the solution of what's happening. And so we have to be really mindful, and part of the work that I do is I'm working on clearing out those blocks. And there's certain things that people can do. One of the exercises that I love teaching people, because what happens is when the thoughts come in, we start to find that evidence. It engages that reticular activation system, and then what happens is we start to spiral down, okay? I'm using my hands as I'm showing you, and here we're on radio. So we start to spiral down, and so how we can stop those thoughts is one of the tools that I like to teach people, and it does 2 things. One, it helps to bring about the awareness of the quality of our thoughts, but 2, it allows us to cancel out that thought and then create a new thought. And so the tool goes like this, and it sounds kind of wonky. And if your listeners are listening and they want to pull over and write this down, they're welcome to, or come back and listen to it again. But it goes like this: interesting point of view, that I have this interesting point of view. And you say that 3 times. And so what happens when we say it 3 times, so I'll repeat that: interesting point of view, that I have this interesting point of view. And when we say it 3 times, what happens is it starts to cancel out that thought that we're having. And then the juiciness of this is that we can open up, and I love opening and teaching people how to do a generative question. And with a generative question, it allows us to be opening back up to the possibilities again. And so instead of shutting off the energy, we're opening it back up again. And so a generative question might be like, what else is possible? I love using this one in traffic. When I'm sitting in traffic and I'm like, oh, what else is possible? To start opening the possibilities back up again. But that's a really powerful tool, and I usually have people, when I first start working with them, start doing that immediately, because I'll work on doing this stuff that's unconscious that they're not aware of, but I don't want them taking on any more conscious thoughts that we can cancel out and not continue to have them cycle back down and create more belief systems, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. And it's interesting, that kind of language also, do you feel like when people say that, it kind of cancels out that negative thought and kind of brings them to a clear slate where they're like, hey, wait a minute, I can kind of refocus my thoughts here? Yeah, and it gives people permission, because I think sometimes we go down that rabbit hole. And here's the thing, our brain is so trained, and there is some sort of juiciness that comes with the brain loves to fight, flight, or freeze. And we've been conditioned that way because, back eons ago, our brains, we have to distinguish between what's a threat and what's not a threat. And so when we are perceiving as a threat, and, years and years ago when we had saber-toothed tigers, the brain would see a saber-toothed tiger and say, oh, I'm at threat, I'm in danger. My brain goes into fight, flight, or freeze. And now we don't have the threat of saber-toothed tigers. However, our thoughts are creating the exact same response in our bodies. And so we can easily get back there, and it's like, oh, this is a threat. And then our brains go into that fight, flight, or freeze. And so if you think about it, like, our brain's always filtering out things that can be threatening to us, and I mean, that's why news is so powerful, right? Because news is based in negativity, it's based in fear, it's based in, right? And so the brain's always like, oh gosh, is this safe? Is this not safe, right? And so we are actually creating that same sensation just with our thoughts. And so it's very powerful, and it's very real, because we're engaging all the senses, we're engaging all the emotion behind those fear-based thoughts. Being able to move that forward. Well, I found it really fascinating. I mean, your book has so many great tips and tools for people to use. One of the things that you talk about is the importance of gratitude, and I'd love for you to expand upon that for our listeners. Yes. Oh, it's so powerful. We were just having this conversation a few weeks ago in my coaching program, and sometimes we take for granted this simple tool of just sharing gratitude. And, when we look from a vibrational standpoint, so everything has vibrations and everything has energy, anything from the bracelet that I'm wearing to the desk that I'm sitting at. So if we were to put those things under a high-powered microscope, we see energy, right? Sometimes we forget that, right? But everything has energy, and including our emotions, our thoughts, etc. And so they've done research through quantum physics and realized that our emotions have a vibration standpoint too. And so the two highest emotional states are love and gratitude. And so when think about the last time you were in a state of pure gratitude. It could be this week. It could have been last week. It could have been when you were on a hike. But, what's the emotion that comes up? I mean, you're in this profound state, right, of being so grateful and being on top of the world, right? And so vibrationally, you are vibrating at such a high level, and you're at such a high frequency. And the neat thing about that is, according to the law of attraction says like attracts like. And when I first learned about the law of attraction, I was like, oh, that just seems too good to be true. And so I totally geeked out and went into and started looking at. But at the end of the day, it's really quantum physics. It's grounded in science. Really fascinating. And so when we start to generate or create from that place, it's just so. It's such an extraordinary place to be in, because things will come to people in a lot more
easy and effortless way. And it doesn't have to be so much, pushing the square peg into the round hole, but really creating a practice of gratitude is key. And I'm, I'm a big believer in ending your day with gratitude. So I have a gratitude practice at the end of my evening. So the last 45 minutes of your night actually gets processed 7 times more than it does any other time of day. So I always tell people, fill that last 45 minutes of your day with yummy, juicy stuff, including some sort of a gratitude practice, and whether that's just you're writing, 10 things down that you're grateful for, or you write about one and just write in detail about it, really, but getting into that place of just that profound gratitude. And you'll end your night that way, and you're setting your brain up for success the next day. And then even some people will even review the next morning. My daughter and I got into this practice when I drop her off to school. Is I'll just say, "Okay, have an amazing day." I think, what are you going to be grateful for today? And so I even kind of pre-frame it as setting creating a seed of oh, I'm going to be grateful for this or what that and so it's really a neat practice to start implementing if you haven't already.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Teri Karjala in regards to her new book, Be the Magic of You, Tools to Transform Your Life. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 123 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
There are nearly 2 million Americans living with amputation. Many live right here in San Antonio. Becoming an amputee can be scary, frustrating, isolating, but there's no reason to feel alone. The San Antonio Amputee Foundation is here to help support you and guide you toward resources such as home and car modifications and even prosthetic limbs. For more information or to make a donation, visit saamputee.org. We'll help you live a full, active life, one step at a time. San Antonio Amputee Foundation, healing limbs, hearts, and souls.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with special guest Teri Karjala, and she's sharing with us her new book, Be the Magic of You, Tools to Transform Your Life. I mean, who doesn't need that? Now, Teri, before we went for break, we were talking about gratitude. And I would love for you to share with us, do you find that when people are grateful, that more things to be grateful about show up within their day and actually within their life?
Oh, yeah. Well, so here's the thing. The brain is going, oh, you're going to be great. You're grateful and you're excited. That same part of the brain, the reticular activation system, is going to find more evidence. Like the brilliance part of that brain is, whether it's negative, it's going to find negative evidence. If it's positive, it's going to find positive evidence. And so absolutely, it's going to start finding more and more ways to show and to, give you evidence that, look at this, here's some more evidence that you're on top of the world, or, you're on track. And I think that all ties back into that concept of, being the magic of you and, owning your zone of brilliance, right? And then it becomes, this amazing state to be in. It does take practice. It's like a muscle. It takes, some exercising of that muscle to make it strong. But once you're in that practice of it, things will start showing up in a more effortless way.
Well, I'm glad you talk about practice, because it seems like with the gratitude, the negative thoughts, there's practice that needs to take place there. So that way we can make those kind of shifts. Is it the same thing with our overall happiness?
As far as practice?
Yes.
I'm a big believer in saying the answer to that is yes, is really creating a routine and a habit. Because when we were talking earlier is that we have so many hats that we wear. We do get wrapped up in the moment of what's going on and the story. I bought the story for the longest time that I'm so busy. When people ask me, they're like, how's it going? I'm like, oh, I'm so busy. And so I almost started creating this busyness, with that, and just being so disconnected from everything else that I was creating. And so it does take practices to slow down, and it sounds counterintuitive almost on all levels, because I was working with a client the other day, and I said, I want you to spend 5 minutes doing this exercise. And she's like, but I need to be doing something. And I'm like, I just want you to play with this and practice this, really just getting mindful. And I think I had told her to do some meditation for 5 minutes. And finally, she was reluctant, but she started, she's like, I'm going to do this as an experiment for 1 full week. She was more productive by slowing down and creating a little bit of a practice for herself than she was just going into the doing, state of mind. And so sometimes it feels counterintuitive, but wait, if I take time for myself and center myself and, ground myself and do some of these tools, I actually can be more effective and more efficient in my work life than not, right? And so I do agree that it is practice. And sometimes, I'm a big believer in saying, let's take this and practice and, experiment with it. And I try to challenge people and say, just go do it for, 24 hours or, 2 weeks and just see the results. And so as soon as people start seeing the results, they're like, oh, you're right. This can be easier. There is an easier way. But I think it takes a commitment to say yes to you.
Well, it's interesting because it seems like we almost have a society that's kind of addicted to being overly busy.
Oh, yes, for sure. And it's almost in a lot of ways rewarded. Like how much stuff or how much things can we get done in a day, and versus just taking a moment. Before I hopped on this call, I had about 5-10 minutes, and I grounded myself. I got into a place of okay, here I'm doing my tools. I'm getting my brain on track, because oftentimes when we're in when we're in that place of doing a task, then when you do a new task, like hopping on a call or whatnot, there's different parts of the brain that are being activated. And so by taking the time to in alignment with the brain and just supporting the brain, it's so much more valuable, and we can get so much more done in a less rushed way.
Yeah. There's kind of and it's almost like giving yourself permission to rest. And it's interesting because I've had to do that myself. I'm like, it's okay not to be going 110 miles an hour every moment.
Yeah, exactly. So taking that time, and again, when you're doing some of these tools, like some of the tools I teach, that you can sprinkle them throughout your day. They don't have to be something that you spend 10 minutes doing. Honestly, when I pick up the call or do something, I may just ask a quick generative question and be like, okay, I have or set an intention, and then engage. And so it can literally be 30 seconds, 15 seconds, but just being much more mindful and intentional with how we spend our day, and letting that create a little bit more ease and breathing space for us.
Well, and so this kind of really dovetails with my next question very well for you here, because a lot of times we have people within our inner circle or people that we know that are like the negative Nellies, or they're very well-meaning, maybe not, saying you'll never accomplish that. You can't. There's no way you'll do that.
Yeah.
So how do we deal with people who want to kind of just, if they want to trample the dreams that we have, or just really negative to be around?
Fire them. No. Okay. This is a challenge, because sometimes, and I'm a big believer that there are people that come into our lives, and there's a time and a space. I think there's a season, a reason, and some people will stay for a season, a reason, and a lifetime. And it's kind of figuring out those folks. And, I grew up, and I was sharing this with someone the other day, that I wasn't the most positive person. And I think because I just didn't know how to really be a positive person in some of the situations that I was in. I was always blaming other people. Like, I've done my own work, right? But, and I attracted a lot of people in my circle that were not super healthy, that were Debbie Downers, and interestingly enough, the more work that I did on myself and the more clear I got on me, the less I was actually attracting those people in my life. And actually the opposite happened. I actually started creating and generating more people that were in alignment with me, because it's energy, right? And so naturally, when you work on yourself, and you make a choice, okay, you make a choice of how you're going to show up, how you're going to interact, and who you're going to be. And when you start being in alignment with who you truly be, you're going to start naturally attracting those folks. So that's kind of the side effect, if you will, on getting really clear and living your authentic life. But in the meantime, you're going to find, and honestly, I've been so disconnected from the folks in my life that have been the negative Nellies, the Debbie Downers in such a long time, because I personally don't tolerate it anymore. Like, when you start to meet someone, right off, you're kind of like, oh, I like this person, or, this person's not really going to resonate with me. And so moving forward, it's always easiest to really connect with and foster those relationships that you are in alignment with, and that they get you and you get them. But when you're doing this work, I do believe that they're, setting really firm boundaries with those folks. And of course, there are times when we have family members that we may not have any control over, not seeing them, not spending less time with them or whatnot. But you can so in those situations where you are going to be seeing these folks, or it's a work environment, something like that you don't really have control over, but setting those firm boundaries with them. And I would also say, if you can shift the conversation, do so, because I think everyone wants to, if it's venting, there are sometimes when I just need to vent, and I'll say, I'll call up a girlfriend and I say, give me 5 minutes, I just need a vent. And then I'm going to find the gift, and then we're going to move on, right? But just making sure that we're not going down that that spiral with these people, and truly distancing yourself from the negative Nellies, because you truly, I truly believe that you need to have those people that are going to support you and allow you to share your big dreams and wishes and desires with. And you need to have those people in your life to really support you and be your cheerleading team.
And people who really embrace your brilliance. And you talk about being in our zone of brilliance. We want people who are going to say, you know what, I support you. What can I do to help? Let's see if we can get you there.
And absolutely. And I think that, that's really where that's the power, right? I'm all about, let's build people up. Let's build as we climb, and let's rally our fellow sisters. Let's rally our fellow neighbors. And so when people call me, sometimes they're like, I have this crazy idea. And they'll tell me what it is. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Let's do it. What can I do to support you? And they're like, really? You don't think it's crazy? I'm like, no, let's do it. And I was like, and sometimes I'll hold them accountable. I'm like, okay, I want you to text me, in 2 days and let me know that you did this, this, and this. And so but being that cheerleader for other people, because other people will then do the same for you. And I think that's the power in how we can support one another and other people's dreams versus being like, oh, what? You can't do that. I've had lots of people in my life saying, what are you doing? You can't do that. And so I'm like, okay, next. Okay, I'm not going to share that with that person again, right? I'm going to find those people that are going to support my craziness and say, yes, you can do this. And so finding that inner circle, like you were talking about, and even within your community of those people that are going to build, versus the people that are going to tear us down. And when we're striving to, and we are stepping into that zone of brilliance, we want those folks that are going to rally and that are going to support us and cheer us on and celebrate with us, right? I think that's important too, is having those people that you can celebrate the wins with and they can celebrate your wins with.
Mm-hmm. Well, and and so it's interesting because you've come a long way. I mean, you've had this journey. You've written this very successful book. You even had Jack Canfield write the foreword for this. So when you were doing all this, was there a point where people were kind of saying, there's no way you're going to get Jack Canfield to write this? I mean, how did that even come about?
I actually never shared that with anyone except for my immediate family. And it was really interesting. So I do this little exercise, talking about vibrations earlier and talking about love and gratitude. So, I like vision boards. Not everyone likes vision boards. And I think the reason why people don't necessarily like vision boards is because they don't quote work. I always challenge people because I'm like, they're probably not doing it right. But I do this exercise, and it sounds a little silly and quite goofy, to be honest, but I will step inside in front of my vision board, and I have pictures on there of the things that I want to create and I desire to do. And then I do this. It's 33 seconds, and I time it. So I have my little timer for 30. It counts down from 33 seconds, and I get into the emotion, feeling, and experience as if it's already happened. And there's time, most often I'm jumping around in my bathroom like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Wow. And I get into full-on joy, love, and excitement. And might be jumping around and I can't believe this happened. Wow. And ironically, what was happening with the Jack Canfield piece is, so he gets over 200, I didn't know this until kind of later on the journey, but he gets over 200 requests per week and rarely writes forwards anymore. And a good friend of mine, I befriended this lady, and again, when you're in that creation mode, and people started coming in, and I started meeting the most dynamic people that were all interconnected, and it was beautiful. It was kind of neat to kind of see how this all unfolded. Mm-hmm. But every morning I would do this, and my daughter, she started co-creating with me, which is very powerful because there's power in, having a thought, and then when you start to invite other people in to have the same thought with you, it actually magnifies that energy. So she became my co-creator without even knowing it. And she's like, Mom, I can't believe it. I can't believe you did that. And I was like, I know, right? So I was like, so she was playing along with me, and one day I picked her up from school, and I usually get in the car, and I'm always have like I feel like I have some exciting news, or can't wait to share this with you, and I'm like, honey, guess what? And she looked at me, she's like, oh, Jack-Canfield wrote your foreword, and I'm like, bah. I was like, you stole my joy. Like, it was really funny, but
like, you stole my thunder.
I know, you stole my thunder here. I said, you're right. But I really got in alignment with it and the energy of it, having it already created. And I teach people the tools to create this and how powerful we are and how potent we are when we are no longer being blocked by the limitations that are holding us back. We become a very powerful creators, and we can create really anything. I know it sounds super cheesy, but it's like anything's possible, right?
Yeah.
And I used to not believe that. I used to think that was complete, like,
baloney.
Baloney, like, not, like, believing that at all. And then, like, as I started, like, I love doing experiments, like, life experiments, where I'm like, I wonder if I could try to do this. I wonder if I could do this. And I do these experiments all the time. Like, I'm always like, like, I engage the curiosity. I engage the possibility. And here's the thing. There's more and more, and such an abundance of evidence for me that's starting to support that story that anything's possible. And I just create more, and then it keeps getting reinforced, right? I mean, it's this beautiful cycle once you're in that alignment. And so it's a bit of a long story how that came about. But to start it off with is one night I was finishing up writing, and truth be told, I never wanted to write the book. It was not on my bucket list. It was not something I wanted to do. But everyone's like, well, if you're going to be a speaker and you're going to be traveling and speaking, like, you need to have a book. And I always joke with people saying, like, I'm a rule breaker in most areas of my life. And I'm like, I'm not going to write a book. Like, I'm just going to break this rule. Like, I think this is a silly rule to have. I'm just not going to do it. I'm just not going to sign up for it. I'm not going to follow the crowd, right? And then, like, things started lining up, and I used to write for other magazines and other folks, and then I'm like, okay, maybe I can do this. And so 8 years later, the book came to fruition. But in the printing process, someone's like, well, you need to have a foreword written by someone. I'm like, ah. And in my head, I was like, I need some amazing, dynamic woman, because that's like my target audience, to write this forward. And I just kept getting these messages, the name Jack-Canfield. And it was like in a 24-hour period, some very unique, interesting things happened. And I'm like, what is this about? And so, quite long story short, we were able to connect, and I did a lot of work with him and doing, some collaborations in some other areas, and then he was able to write my foreword. And so, it just has been, this really cool process, and being open and, practicing what I preach, and, it's been a great journey.
It sounds like it's just been a fabulous journey, and that's why your book, Be the Magic of You, has been so successful, because you've been there, you've done that. So you can take people through the process themselves.
Yes. And I love to have fun. Like, I love to incorporate humor and playfulness, to be a little bit less serious. And, and really when I'm working with clients, I invite them to find the joy and the laughter and the play, even in the work that I'm modeling for them, and giving them permission to play in life.
Yeah. To be able to go ahead and do that and enjoy life. And, manifesting and bringing about the life that you want is supposed to be enjoyable and fun, not like we're trudging through a swamp,
Right. And when we do that, we get more of that, right? And so we are pushing, and there's pressure to do this or to. And last night I was just on my Facebook Live, and we were talking about letting go of the outcome. And I think that's so crucial, because sometimes when I need to have this, I want to get this, I want, whatever those, and there's a whole bunch of things that are wrong with what I just said, because we're needing, we're wanting, right? And those are all lacking words. But when we're in that place of what I call like getting stuck in the muck, we're trying to trudge forward, we're only getting more and more of what that is. And it's frustrating and daunting, and there's a lot of hopelessness and depression and sadness and scarcity that comes up when we're in that place, questioning and doubting, and then we're getting more of what that piece is, and then we're wondering why it's not working for us.
Yeah. How come it's not moving all forward like we would expect for it to?
Mm-hmm. I always say, getting stuck in the muck and then having this, zone of brilliance up above. And I always thought that was, the most important is to, live a life of being happy and, in harmony, at peace, was always the target to strive for. And what I realized, the most important piece is realizing the how to lose it and then how to gain it. So these intersectional points in our life where we've gained it and then lost it, and really recognizing and identify what those pieces are and how we can then be more intentional with switching it for ourselves and being very intentional. How do I lose it? Because now when I lose it, when I fall out of alignment, instead of being 2 weeks, 3 months, whatever that might be, it's now 5 minutes, right? And so, making those choices and knowing, I have these tools to get myself back in alignment and back on track.
Well, what an important thing that is, because, I think a lot of times people get kind of stuck and then they're like, I just can't find my way back to a place of alignment. And, you offer them simple steps that they can go ahead and do this with.
Yes.
And it makes it really simple. Well, and so I know, my gosh, your book, Be the Magic of You, and also the Daily Intentions Planner, they're both very fabulous and they work so well together. What final thoughts would you like to leave our listeners with today?
We have tons of choices. We make about 50,000 choices a day. And I would challenge everyone to look at what choices are you making in your life? Is it taking you where you'd like to go? And if not, take a look at that and start looking at what you would like to create. And my biggest piece is take action. You're never going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. But take one small step. Take action now for what that is for you. And get really clear what that is, and surround yourself with a support team that's going to support you and guide you, cheer you on, and definitely celebrate you in the successes that you're creating.
Be able to move forward that way. Well, Teri, where can people connect with you and be part of your community?
Absolutely. They can go online at Talking with Teri. So it's Teri is spelled TERI.com. So talkingwithteri.com. That's my website. They can, connect with me on all the social media outlets and, connect with me there.
Now, if someone wants to do an appointment with you, do you do that virtually or is it all in office?
I do. I would say majority of the folks that I work with are virtual. So I have everyone, most of my folks are national or international. So they can connect with me through the website. And there is a contact page that they can fill out and we can connect that way. I'm very easily accessible for any questions, or if they want to do a 30-minute free consult to see where they're at. We take a look at what's working and what's not working and what they would love to create, and then we'll see if we can help support them on their journey.
Oh, well, that sounds fabulous. Teri, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been a delight.
Oh, well, thank you, Teri. It's been such a joy to spend this time with you. And I love talking about your book, Be the Magic of You, Tools to Transform Your Life. Again, if you'd like to connect with Teri, you can at her website, talkingwithteri.com, and that's TERI.com. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.